Hello, everybody. Joe Bag of Donuts here. Welcome back for another episode of Mahoyo. I'm tired again today. It seems like a common theme with all the episodes I'm recording for literally anything I do is that I'm always tired. What can I do? Last night I tried to go to sleep at a normal time, normal, for a normal human being. It didn't work out. I went to sleep at like fucking 6 p.m. Only slept till like 3:30 because the squirrels in my ceiling were making too much of a ruckus, which, I'm only renting, so I don't actually care about going and like flushing them out because it's cold out. Let the squirrels do their thing. It's normally not a problem because they're only in there at night, and because I'm supposed to be on night shift, uh they don't bother me when I sleep during the day. But considering it's currently, well, it's like 30 degrees out right now, but there's like 25-mile-an-hour wind, so the wind chill has at like 8 degrees, and it was the got the first snow of the season. Yeah, they're in there scattering around, moving nuts. They definitely have like a little nut stash somewhere. And my bedroom has sloped ceilings because it's, on the second floor, and there's no attic, so it's just bedroom, ceiling flat in the middle, and then sloped on both sides. So when they drop a nut or whatever, just rolling down, then them fucking with their little claws on the other side of the drywall because I got no insulation in the ceiling because this house was built in the 40s. And even if it does, it's probably asbestos. So, great. Fantastic. But anyway, yeah. I've already had like 2 pots of coffee today. I don't want to make another. So I've just had drinking my big old bottle of unsweetened green tea that I got at the grocery store, that I made sure to go stock up on provisions before the holidays actually hit. I think this will be coming out on Christmas, in which case, stop watching this, just go hit the watch later and go spend time with your family. Unless you're Jewish, I guess, in which case, happy Hanukkah. Even though Hanukkah still takes place during the Christmas, I don't know, man. Look, go spend time with your families during the holidays, unless you're watching this way afterwards, in which case, completely ignore what I'm saying. I just sound like a crazy person, which is no different than normal. Hi, welcome. You probably figured this out if you're on episode 9. I think this is 9, maybe, or 8. I don't know. I don't feel like checking. I could pull it up and look, but I don't care enough. I'm just tired, man. I'm just tired. I'm so tired. Hopefully the wind doesn't pick up on the mic because I recorded my sunroom, and it's like shaking all the windows. You'll probably be able to hear it occasionally when I'm talking, when the noise suppression on the microphone doesn't work as well. But let's get into Mahoyo. Now, let us rewind 5 hours prior to this glutton for punishment going to bed. It was 7 o'clock in the evening, just after an unproductive discussion between the two mages and the boy had ended. Leaving her roommate and the intruder in the drawing room, the girl walked alone through the foyer. From there, she headed to the west wing. These were Alice Kuonji's personal chambers, in which even her roommate, Aoko Ozaki, seldom dared to step foot. The foyer was illuminated only by the pale moonlight. Hard footsteps echoed through the dreary, moonlit lobby. In such mansions in Japan, there is no custom for removing shoes at the door, even though you should, just in houses in general. Your feet are dirty from walking outside. Throw in a pair of like indoor slippers or fucking sandals. I have a pair of indoor Crocs that I wear because, like I said, the house was built in the 40s before insulation was invented. That's a lie, but it sure fucking feels like it in the winter. And all these like real hardwood floors are killer on my feet. Like if I want to like not feel my toes, just walk around barefoot for a little bit. Hence, Alice crossed the foyer in her boots. She only removed them when she relaxed in her bedroom. That's fucking weird. I like I know it's the stereotype, and some people do it, like in like Western countries, i.e., America. But again, Only fucking psychos do that, especially boots. Like, you're just hanging out in your own home in boots. The only time I have my boots on in my house when I'm not just like tying them up to go walk to my car is if I forgot like my phone charger in my bedroom and I already went out to my car and I don't want to take off my boots just to walk upstairs and come down and retie them and yada yada yada. So I'll just tuck up the stairs in my boots and then that's it. Other than that, shoes off at the door. Suddenly, she remembered something from her childhood. She used to enjoy the feeling of the cold hardwood floor on her bare feet and would walk around the foyer on particularly sunny days. After her father affectionately scolded her for it, she never did it again. I mean,
そうだったわね。
you're gonna get like
青子は結局
mud prints instead of like footprints on the floor, and one of those is a lot easier to clean up than the other. She let out a quiet sigh. Alice's new roommate, whom she took on after coming to Japan, would not comply with her instructions.
落ち着かないものはしょうがない。
Ako would say, changing into her slippers. Ako might have found it natural to do so, given that she lived in a typical Japanese house through middle school, but every time Alice heard her flip-flopping through the foyer, she wanted to cancel their cohabitation. By now, Alice was not particularly bothered by it anymore. Human adaptability is remarkable at times, and ungracious at others. Well, it's not like she probably actually cleans it herself. She probably just makes like a little fucking familiar go around and do it. Little magical Roomba. The emotional attachments of the past have proved far too brittle under the weight of reality. A little blue bird was perched on the banister. Its tiny chirping made Alice stop and look its way.
今夜は放っておくわ。今は青子の問題よ。
The lack of feeling in her voice made the bird tilt its head as it sang. Tweet, tweet, tweet. It trilled, as though questioning its master's uncharacteristic leniency.
約束は約束よ。今夜ぐらいは多めに見ないと。
Mm-hmm. She's like a fucking dad who's like, kid brought home a dog or a cat, and they're like, I don't want any fucking animals in this house. And, give it like a month, and, they'll be curled up on the sofa together. Platonically, of course.
青子と彼はそれだけの活躍をしたのだし。
She'll like give him scoops of peanut butter as a treat as long as he doesn't tell Alco. She said that to the bird, her voice betraying her discontent. If you win, I'll let you go. She would keep that promise, in spite of the unquenchable desire to fight that burned in her chest.
でもその後の処遇は別の話。
I didn't have to let him into my house.
条件付きのゲームに勝ったぐらいで、いつまでも得意げでいられるのは心外だわ。
Perhaps it was perfectionism born of fadiciousness, but despite her prim demeanor, Alice Kuonji was a sore loser. It did not matter to It did not matter to her whose magecraft was superior. Losing the game had proven hard to move on from. The little bird fluttered its wings in agreement. Shrinking in Alice's contempt, it was itching to dive bomb the invader. It looked like a soldier saluting a superior officer as it preened itself. The blue bird turned to face its master. Tweet, 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 tweet. Its lighthearted tweetings seemed to display a desire to deal with Sojiro first thing in the morning. Just fucking pluck his eyes out when he's asleep.
そうね。理由さえできたのなら、瓶なり本なりに入ってもらいましょう。
Except, her words lacked any bite. On the face of it, they were the chilling kind one might expect from a witch's lips, but then again so tame as to remind you of a certain robin's flapping.
しばらくの話よ。けど、それも一時だけ。私、だいたい、青子も人にかまけていられる立場じゃないわ。
Mm-hmm.
いつかもすれば思い知るでしょう。そうすれば。
She'll deal with the issue herself. When that time came, expelling him would be simple. Alice was well aware her roommate was a pragmatist with no vision. The situation she created would not allow her to wait around. She could only afford to protect the boy for 3 or 4 days at most. Beyond that, Alice sensed Alka would crack and say something like, "You take care of this, Alice."
それまで待つか、あるいは私の我慢が効かなくなるか。
I feel like she'll might be making an exception for him and give him a little more leniency.
どちらにしても結果は変わらないわ。
Alice Kuonji would suffer no more irritations. And protecting a witness, let alone allowing them to live in her manor, was an indignity. Oh yeah, the spooky fog. Alice looked up, fascinated by the dense fog that had crawled into the foyer. Above the fireplace was a single mirror. Roughly 3 feet in diameter, it decorated the wall where one might find a painting. Its surface was faintly clouded and vaguely reflected the foyer's appearance.
スナークをなくした影響でしょうね。鏡の機能、しばらくは制御できないみたい。
The little bird joyfully chirped at its master's mumbling. The bird attempted to imply there was no need for it to lift a finger, not if the nuisance would fall into the mirror of his own accord. Or perhaps, had the little bird not saying, "There's the siren." Like I said, first snow of the year today. Well, season, because it technically snowed earlier in the year in like January and February. Which means people are driving like fucking morons, and slipping on the ice, and fucking crashing into telephone poles. Let's just wait for it to be over. I'll take a sip of my tea. Unsweetened, of course, because sweet tea just like rots your teeth. And, makes you fat. Unsweetened bold green tea. I don't know if they make a light flavor, but I prefer my tea to have like some bite to it, I guess. I don't want it to feel like just... Alright, this is gonna sound weird. Tea flavored water, because that's all tea is, but you know what I mean. I want it to taste like tea and not just water that like if you were drinking tea out of a mug and then finished it and then just went to go fill it up with water and then drink from the water from that mug. That's gross. Tea needs to taste like tea, and that includes not, like, masking the flavor with copious amounts of sugar. Had the little bird not sang, Alice would have come to the same conclusion. For some reason, she recalled an earlier conversation.
これでも一番無難だと思う。
In response to her question, the boy inside the bottle shrugged his shoulders and answered. From his perspective, the city and the mansion were no different. It seemed that having just moved from the countryside, everything was something he had never seen before.
自慢できることじゃないが、まだ書き物さえ満足にできないし、都会のルールは複雑すぎて、何が正しいのかさえ区別がつかない。
Do you at least know how to read well? Well, I guess writing and reading are 2 separate skills, technically. More than embarrassment, his voice was full of resentment. He was angry about something, although Alice could not tell what. But...
だから、どこにいても危ないことに変わりはないんだ。極端な話、道を歩くだけでも、人と話すだけでも不安になる。
Oh, well, that's me too, bud.
どこでだろうとうまくやっていける保証はないんだよ。けど、ここにはそんな奴に気を使ってくれる人がいる。気遣ってくれる理由は物騒なものっぽいけど、それは本当に贅沢なことだと思うんだ。
Living in this cage with, fucking 2 lions that might rip him to shreds is better than being out all alone. Because at least they might, curl up to him and purr a little bit. Her eyes welled up ever so slightly. Those soft words were something she could not brush off, because they made sense to her. Given that everything in the city was a danger to him, nothing had changed after coming to the mansion. In reality, he had no reason to fear this place in particular. If anything was different from the outside, it would be that someone here was his ally. With that view, he had been entirely sincere. His explanation hadn't contained any flattery towards Alice Kuonji, more pandering to... You mean Nor? I'm unfamiliar with more spelt M-O-R, but it seems an awful lot like Nor, pandering to Aoko Ozaki. He was simply speaking from the heart. I like it here.
今鏡に迷い込まれるのは迷惑ね。
Yep, because then fucking Aoko would spend time trying to fish him out, then he'd have to deal with her fucking causing up a storm.
鏡の機能は侵入者の探索に専念させ
Doesn't
た
make
い
any
し、
sense. Ignore what I just said there.
彼が迷い込みそうになったら止めてあげて。
The bird shook its feathers at her strange instruction. Alice looked away from the mirror and continued her walk. The bird chirped in protest.
あなたの仕事よ、ロビン。それぐらいの役には立って。
Leaving the bird with that icy retort, she vanished into the west wing. All there remained was the moonlight, and the little blue bird trembling at the perilous prospect of unprecedented change. Yeah, me too, bud. Oh, we were real close to the end of the chapter last time, weren't we, huh? No need to save for now. Let's just pop in the archive, just to make sure there's no 0.5 chapters. Nope. Cool. Moving on. Are you for real? What is this, Persona 5? Once, long ago, I saw a beautiful bird fly overhead. Round and round, it circled the distant blue sky. How high it flew in this era when humans, not birds, reigned supreme. And yet, the bird was completely uninterested in humanity's endless desire for expansion, our creation of ever higher homes, or the smoke billowing from industry's chimneys. The sky extends further than the eye can see. It belongs to no one, not now, not then. The bird was a truly noble creature, flapping its wings powerfully across the wild, ancient sky. Oh! Then, the sudden sound of cold iron. A wing is shot, its symmetry gone forever. Cruel and tragic, its body plummets downwards. Not knowing its fate, the bird frantically beats its wings till the very end. One moment soaring with eyes to the sky, the next crashing down to the dry, hardened earth. Yeah, hollow bones ain't good for resisting birdshot. This was the dream I saw. No matter how much I thought about it, its details remained clouded. What did the bird look like, for instance? You sleeping in class, bud?
はい、今日の授業はここまで。
Oh god, this
試
fucking
験範囲
guy.
の総まとめなんかやっちゃいましたけど、これうちのクラスだけで
Oh
すか
god,
ら、
what was his
よそ
even
のク
fucking
ラ
name?
ス
Was
は
it
内密にお願いし
Yamasiro or
ます
something?
ね。担任特権と思ってください。ほら、原告の平均点ぐらいは学年一番にしておくと、
I remember that at
皆
least
さ
the
んも
last half
鼻
of
が
his name
高い
was
と思い
Shiro,
まし
because I
て。
always wanted to say Shiro, but that's not it. Mr. Yamasiro chuckled as he finished. Haha, I was right. This was typical of the kind teacher responsible for Year 2, Class C, the master at relaxing his pupils.
先生、口元に本音出てる。鼻を高くしたいのは私たちじゃないですよね。
Yeah, that's the train. I don't hear it very often.
花っていうかメンツですよね。先生、里中先生に嫌味言われてばっかりだし。
Gotta fucking pit all your students together to show I'm the best teacher who can bring my students the highest fucking up the charts, so pay me more.
つうかはっきり言えばいいんすよ。お前ら頭悪すぎだって。いや、
いえいえ、テストの点数だけが学生生活ではありませんから、
I mean,
僕から言うべきことは何も。
as far as colleges are concerned, no, it's not.
先生方もそこまで目くじら立ててるわけじゃないので、別にクラス
They
全
just
員が
want to
赤
see
点で
you
も
improve
僕の人生には何ら関わりはないんですけどね。
and learn something new, but also score really good, so that way I look good in the yearly review.
しかし一方では一人厄介な御人がおりまして、皆さんが選んだ全校生徒代表の方なんですが、
Mm-hmm.
これが恐ろしいのなんの。テストの点数が低いのは生徒ではなく教育する側が無能だからです。教育委員会への報告準備はいつでもできていますので、
Is it anything else but that, though?
日夜脅してくるんですよ。それでも生徒たちが治らないようなら、その時は直接私が監督します。とか、生徒としてどうなんですかね。
Well,
あれ
maybe if you were a more like reliable teacher and adult, that wouldn't be an issue. The warm atmosphere in the room suddenly fell below freezing. The students at Class C now knew who their true enemy was.
ああ、そっか。山城先生生徒会の顧問だったっけ。ナムナム。
さすがは応援団を立ち直らせた上傑。教師一人退職に追い込むなど造作もね。
Well, the first part's not too strange.
やっぱりな、会長絶対年サバ読んでるって。あの迫力、同年代と思えねえし。
She probably just read their, like, I don't know. I was gonna say they're like profiles, but there's got to be some documentation on them that she can just go in and get and read.
ほら、うちの女子と比べると特にこうおっぱい的に。
Oh, yeah, you're right on that front.
先生、木の実だけでも A 組に引き取ってもらえませんか？そりゃ男子はみんな猿ですけど、こいつだけレベルの違う猿ですよ、絶対。
あれ、でも女子 A 組だけどあんまり成績良くねえよな。中の上ぐらいじゃなかったっけ？
そうだけど別にいいんじゃない。塾も行ってないし、生徒会仕切ってたまにバイトまでしてるんだから。
だよな。
Mm-hmm.
周囲は副会長に任せとけ
Can't
ばいいん
stand
だ
out too
よ。
much.
まあまあ皆さん、
Even
噂
though
話
you
はそ
kicked
のあ
it
たりで
off.
地獄耳という言葉もありますから。じゃあそれなりに復習をよろしく。
He says, being the
あ
first
ま
one
り
to
点
talk
数が
behind
悪い
someone's
と
back.
冬休みそのものがなくなりますからね。あ、それとしずきくん、ちょっといいですか？
Mr. Yamashiro gathered his things and beckoned for Sojiro to join him in the hallway. There were no other students to be seen despite it being break time between classes. Voices were audible in the distance, but the hall itself felt strangely quiet and calm. Perhaps it was due to the sense of confinement created by the lack of windows. Usually, students spent their breaks either in the classroom or on the veranda.
何ですか、山城先生。
いえ、そう大した用事じゃないんですけどね。試験前にこんな話をするのもデリカシーがないんですが、気になったので。
Okay. Normal questions. Though this level of concern from a teacher startled him, Sojiro felt reassured. It was only natural. After having had to deal with such difficult personalities lately, Mr. Yamashiro's trivial questions were refreshing.
はい。学校の作りや決まりなら自分なりに分かってきました。友達も増えましたし。
そっか、それはよかった。うち
Oh,
のク
gee,
ラ
I
スは
wonder
口の悪い面
why
々だ
they're
け
able
ど
to get away with that.
その分気を使わなくていいからね。しずきくんと相性が良くて助かったよ。
Sojiro's eyes shone brightly in appreciation. In Aoko's words, Mr. Yamashiro was a brutish, forgettable, downright detestable man who did not even deserve the title of teacher. But Sojiro found him considerate in his own way.
アルバイトもほどほどにね。試験前だって言えば大抵のところは
He's
休
too
ませてくれる
flimsy,
から、あまり
wishy-washy.
無理はしないように。また試験で困った
Doesn't
こと
want
が
to
あ
be
っ
the
た
bad
ら
guy to his
周りに
students.
相談しなさい。一人で悩んでいても時間の無駄だよ。ほら、学校っていうのは話し相手にだけは困らないから。
With a wave of his hand, Mr. Yamashiro was gone. The pure-hearted Sojiro gave him a solemn nod as if to say he accepted the advice of his so-called forgettable teacher and went back into his classroom. And then
女のことで相談だ
Sojiro had not wasted a moment in putting Mr. Yamashira's advice into practice.
そうらしい。難問にぶち当たっているんだ。
Yep.
深く考え
That's
て
how
み
it
て
is.
気づいたんだが、どうも自分は発想が貧困らしい。
Sojiro averted his eyes out of shame over his lack of insight.
いや豊かだと思ってたことがびっくりなんだけど。まあいい、こっち来い。
I mean, that's just because he's like naturally, I don't know, nice. He has nice guy energy, but not like the bad kind of nice guy. The genuine nice guy, which makes, you know, girls drop their guards around him. That's a weird way to put it, but you know what I mean. He puts out no danger signals whatsoever. Personable, maybe, but not like charismatic personable, just kind of like good guy personable. Which is, it's good for getting it in, but you know, anything beyond that, you know, you still need to learn the ins and outs. Shocked as he was, Kinomi grabbed Sojiro by the shoulder and pulled him over to the wall. Kinomi had nearly burst out laughing when Sojiro, with a straight face, had admitted his difficulty with girls. But he realized it was the first time Sojiro had ever turned to him for advice. Sojiro was always able to break down any task at his part-time jobs into bite-sized pieces, but he was clearly struggling with a different problem now. This was going to take some serious effort.
で、なんかやっちまったのか Yo.
I mean, he's in pretty deep, bud.
これからやるのかもしれない。
You might step on the landmine without even knowing it.
木の実、例えばの話、マッドベアにハリセンボンみたいな女の子が入ってきたとする。
Okay.
その子は俺が嫌いで、マッドベアから出て行ってほしいようなんだけど、俺はマッドベアを辞めるわけにはいかない。
Well, you work there, so it'd be kind of weird to have to leave. Sojiro explained that he couldn't just quit his part-time job at the restaurant. He needed money. Kinomi grunted a few times to indicate that he was still following Sojiro's story.
つまりその女を追い出したいと。
逆だ。なんとか認めてもらいたい。隠していたけど、俺はその女の子が嫌いというわけじゃなくて。
Sojiro furrowed his brow. Kinomi could not help but laugh at his friend's lack of manly resolve in his answer. Girls were the one area where Hosuke's skills and experience were triple those of Sojiro. Yeah, but what's the success rate?
なんだ
You got game,
要
Carrot
は
Top?
ナンパだよ。むしろ仲良くなりたいってわけ
Sojiro wasn't sure how to respond. He nodded slowly without really understanding the implication of what Kinomi had said.
けど、
Yeah, what is this?
どうすればいいのかわからない。そもそもどうやって同い年の女の子と仲良く話ができるんだ
That's a hard one, you know, because you're in the high school age bracket, which things are exponentially more difficult than they need to be.
クラスの女どもとは話してんじゃん。あれでいいんだっつの。俺は羨ましいっつの。
Yeah, that's just like surface level cordiality.
持ち前の天然系で押してけばいいべ。山育ちってのは希少なアイデンティティだと思うぜ。珍しいものは生かさないとさ。
そうかな。
That's not gonna do him any good in
珍
this
しいという
situation,
の
though.
はあんまりいいことじゃない気がする。
Less
大体
unusual and more
そも
unique.
そも嫌われている場合はどうすればいいんだ？クラスのみんなは親切だけど、相手はハリセンボンだ。いや、この際ハリネズミでもいい。
そういう場合はめげなきゃいいんだよ。相手が折れるのを待つって寸法だな。トゲだけに。
I mean, you're right, but, you know, we're on a bit of a time frame here. Sojiro's brow sunk deeper still.
この例え話はダメだ。
He needed more concrete material to work with.
ばっか。女なんてのは機嫌を取ってればいいんだよ。まずは女の趣味とか大事にしてるもんとか聞いて、そこをフォローすればいい。自分の都合より
I
相
don't
手
know
の
if
都合だ。
Alice is the
まずは
the
外
hobby
堀から
having
攻め
kind
ろ
of
って
girl.
ことだな。
外堀、外回りか。
もちその後は、
Yeah,
まあ
attack the weak
結局
point
は
for
これが
massive
一番
damage.
効果的なんだけどな袖の下ってやつプレゼントで釣れ
Yeah, here's this cool pebble I found. I think you'd like it.
その時の需要と供給さえ合えば
It sparkles
嫌われ
at
て
the
て
right
も
light.
受け取ってもらえる受け取らせちまえばあとはそれが義理になるってもんだ
Kinomi then proclaimed with an odd sense of pride that this approach had resulted in only failure for him.
けど問題がある木の実確かにご飯とかそういうのをおごってもらうと嬉しいけど
そんな金はないってんだろ分かってる分かってる
Well, are you still paying rent on your apartment, or did you close that lease?
仕方ないねそういうしずきくんのために一丁割のいいバイトを紹介してやろうじゃねえのよ
Take it from the till! They slid from the side of the classroom deeper to one corner, to in front of the lockers, where no one ever stayed for long. It would be days before Sojiro realized the suggestion he was receiving was of the illegitimate kind, the kind he could not have shared with anyone. That night, dinner at the mansion was a feast of bread. Sounds like one of my dinners. Soft slices lay stacked in the center of the table, surrounded by various colored jams. In a bowl was salad, mainly lettuce, with a small plate of unevenly cut ham. Sojiro may have had no frame of reference for what an average family dinner should be, but he could tell that this was most certainly not normal. In truth, it was a first-rate case of laziness. Again, sounds like one of my dinners.
チョコのペースト切れたままじゃん
Though I hate like making multiple dishes, so I'll just make like one big thing, and that's it. Though I've been lazy and not cooking recently, so I've just been having canned goods. So like, you know, a bowl of soup and like open up a can of like bean salad with like corn in there, and it's like, yep, this'll do. And then I'll have that for dinner and lunch.
アリス新しいの買っておいてって言わなかった
今日は一日部屋にこもっていたから第一チョコレートを食べるの
Make
は
your
あなた
fucking
だけ
teeth
よ
hurt.
自分のものは自分で調達をするべきね
For these two girls, however, this dinner seemed to be completely normal. They had a system of irregularly taking turns being in charge of meals, and tonight was Alice's turn. Normally, she would have spent a little time and effort as possible, only truly applying herself when there was something to celebrate. Of course, Sojiro was none the wiser to Alice's unique approach to food preparation. For him, it was a plain, lackluster meal. And when it came to dinner, not saying anything to each other was another staple of their meals. The sounds of cutlery, and scraping of chairs, and the tick-tock of the clock were the only things to be heard in the sunroom. Sojiro himself had already eaten. At this moment, he was watching the going-ons from the drawing room.
宗十郎9時からアルバイトでしょ行ってらっしゃい私たちのことは気にしないでいいから
Yeah, let them just fucking take bites out of their whole heads of lettuce
あ
and have a fork
じゃあ
full
行
of
ってくれ
ham. Sojiro donned his coat with a goodbye nod. When Sojiro glanced again at the sunroom, he momentarily locked eyes with Alice, or so he imagined. She had been ignoring him all day, not just refusing to talk to him. She had avoided him so much as to not look at him all day until this very moment. He could understand if he was annoying her as an outsider in the mansion, but he felt no animosity in her gaze just now.
今の様子を見てたのかな
No. Sojiro looked nervously at his surroundings for a moment before heading to the foyer. Alice only let her gaze return to normal when she was completely sure he was gone.
ああめんどくさ
Naoko was appalled by Alice's brazen display. So much so, her immaculate veneer of apathy crumbled.
何献立に不満でもあるの青子。
もちろんあるけど、いつものこと
I
だ
was
し
about
慣
to
れ
say
て
you
る
shouldn't
わ。
have chocolate for dinner, but the only thing I had for lunch today was chocolate that was in Christmas care package my family sent me. All I had was little chocolate Christmas candies.
私が呆れてるのは、あんたの意地の悪さの方。
I got a break in my new air fryer I got.
徹底的に無視してるくせに、相手の反応を伺ってるなんてめめしくない？罠張って待ち受けるようなもんじゃない。
彼の反応なんて探ってないわ。そもそも興味がないもの。それと、今のは差別発言ね。めめしいという表現は女性軽視に過ぎるわ。今の場合なら、あなたは矛盾していると言ってちょうだい。
うわ、自覚ありときた。
Choosing not to rise to her roommate's jibe. Jibe? Jibe? Yeah, I guess jibe. Alice resumed eating. Hako tore off pieces of bread and ate them one by one, anger still visible on her face.
じゃあここからは、青崎青子としてじゃなく、共犯者としての質問ね。
Yeah, give us
ア
the
リス的
insider
に
knowledge.
彼を見逃していいと思える判断材料はない？ありえないけど、実は彼も魔術師でしたなんてオチであったとしても、ここに住まわせるのは容認できない？
No, I feel like she just cracked down even harder.
その理由なら認めるわ。彼を許すのではなく、そんなことに気づかなかった私たちへのペナルティとして。そうね。今のは絶対にありえない話だけど、それと同じに絶対の結論もまたないわ。彼がここに住む選択を飲む場合すらあるかもしれない。
Mm-hmm.
気の迷いは私にだってあるのだし。
Yeah, but you're being real wishy-washy about it.
ええ、そういうことよ。今は私との義理とかプライドで冷静を保ってるあんただけど、あいつの努力次第で少しは。
それは諦めて。彼が何をしようと無駄だから。
What makes you say that?
あなたも知っていると思うけど。
Alice had never been the type to let her guard down around others. The young witch despised humans, having recreated so many of their objects in fairy tales.
そんなのあんた個人のトラウマでしょ？自分の意固地さを魔女の血統云々で棚上げするのはそれこそめめしいわ。いいじゃない。嫌いなら嫌いではっ
I
きり
just
して
found
れ
a
ば。
weak one of her, so you're just gonna keep poking it, ain't you?
私が気に食わないのはね。
どっちつかずの態度。
そう。無視するなら徹底して無視してやれって言ってるの。
Yeah, but you keep fucking stealing glances at him when he's leaving, and you think he's not
ガ
looking.
チガチに守りを固めて、そのくせ縄文だけ開けて、獲物が油断して入ってきたら串刺しにする気満々とか、相棒として見てられないわ。
You're playing hard to get.
あいつにできることなんて、閉ざされた門を開けることぐらいだっていうのに、その機会さえなくすのはどうなの？
ごめんなさい青子。もう少し簡単に言って。その例えはちょっと。
Alice seemed unable to grasp Aoko's metaphor. Meanwhile, Aoko had it up to here with her roommate's lack of self-awareness and was starting to lose her cool.
だから興味ないとか言っておきながら粉かけるなってこと。あんなにチラチラ盗み見たらあいつ変に勘違いしちゃうかもしれないでしょ。アリスはああ見えて本当は自分と仲直りしたがっているに違いない。じゃあ早速部屋に押しかけてみよう
I mean,
とか。
probably not.
そういうことに
No.
なるの？
なる。少なくとも私だったらいい加減イライラして話があるなら校舎裏まで来いって決着つけかねないレベル。この毒。
Well, that's because you're a violent bore.
そうだったのね。気をつけるわ。別に彼と話をする気はないんだし、私も彼を見ていたというより
What?
彼の手足を見ていたのだし。
What's that supposed to mean?
手足って
Yeah,
何？
what? Why?
手足は手足よ。彼個人には思うところはないけど、あの夜の出来事はまだ記憶に新しいから。
I have no idea what you're talking about.
それが少しだけ気になって、つい視線で追っていたのね。
あの夜って遊園地のこと？なんかしたっけあいつ。
Yeah, you lost me. Alice's expression soured. She still felt the sting of her
飛ん
defeat.
だでしょ、彼。レールの上から私のダンプティーに向かって。
What, you thought it was cool?
ええ、そんなこと言ってたわね。勢いでつい1メートルぐらいだから飛んじゃったとか。
Akko had not actually seen it in person, luckily. All she knew was that the spell she had placed on Sojiro was part of the reason he survived that jump of death. Alice, on the other hand, had observed the whole scene from the clock tower. It lasted only an instant, but it had burned itself into her mind's eye. More than when her precious moon had fallen at Aoko's hands, and Flat Snark had come tumbling down.
でもそれがどうしたの？卵の敵討ちってわけ？
ダンプティーは壊れるのが仕事だから、
Mm-hmm.
敵討ちも何もないわ。ただ、人間の体ってあんな風に動くんだな。
You thought he looked cool. As it goes, for someone with as little human interaction as Alice, Sojiro's leap must have appeared quite remarkable. Also, you don't appear to be the athletic type, so, extrally so. Particularly because his legs were orders of magnitude less capable than those of an animal in the forest. And yet, even with such feeble legs and those meek arms of his, he managed to fly through the open air like a bird. To her, it was akin to the feeling city folk get when they see a wild creature in its natural habitat.
気にしないで。機会があるならもう一度見たいと思っただけ。別に彼に何を期待しているわけじゃないわ。
You just mean in general.
なるほど。
Gotcha.
アリスのプロイって大体が人型じゃないしね。単に物珍しさで見ていただけか。
Aoko sighed and released the tension from her shoulders. She was disappointed to discover that Alice's behavior stemmed from simple curiosity, like that of a child with a new toy. And Alice was in no position to take issue with her reaction. And how could she? She was not entirely sure what it was she herself was feeling.
夕食、明日は私が作るから。
You gonna make some real food?
試験前だってのに、こんなしょぼくれたもん食べさせられたら、一夜漬けする気合も湧かないわよ。
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine eating like a goddamn fucking I don't even know what, like a post-apocalyptic scavenger. Because even when I am at work, you know, it's not that hard. I have to do some physical work and not a whole lot of mental work, fortunately. So I can just be fucking cruising through life with brain fog and like barely aware of my surroundings, and everything works out fine. I'd say as I'm putting fucking 3 tons of jet fuel onto an aircraft loaded with flares and explosives. And it's like, yeah, just fucking spaced out. Eyes pointing in different directions because have no nutrition in my body and I'm dying of malnutrition.
ご自由に。私も手が空いて
Anything
助
to
か
keep
る
the
わ。
calorie count down. That's what sucks about having like a dog shit metabolism. Like I metabolize food like a goddamn refrigerator. I'll eat and then it's like, cool, I had my one cheat day for the month. Anything else and I'm gonna gain like 5 pounds. Night came and went in the mansion. For better or worse, the disturbances caused by the foreign invader had not yet caused the kettle to boil over. It's especially frustrating compared to my sister, who eats like abject garbage. Yet she's like a blast furnace with food. It's ridiculous. The next morning, at 6:30, as sunlight spread across the sky, Sojiro walked to school with Aoko in the chilly morning air. Damn, 6:30, the sun's coming up in the winter there?
洋館にいるときは、極力一人にならないこと。
I guess Japanese time zones are pretty nice. Must get dark early, though. It was her intention to keep Sojiro safe until he left the mansion. Nonetheless, or
眠い
nevertheless,
6
whatever
時
it
から
said.
同行とかあんたも働き者ね。
そうでもないよ。30分仕出しを手伝うだけだし。
His work ethic was a little too strong for a student entering finals.
それより青崎、無理してないか？別にこっちに付き合うことないんだぞ。
ご心配なく生徒会室で仮眠取るから。約束だし、
Yep, get a little
5
power
までは
nap.
一緒に行くわよ。
45 minutes is about all you need. But internally, Aoko was worried. What traps did her roommate have in store for him? She could not imagine Alice had planned everything to go down in the woods, but she wanted to be safer than sorry. The least she could do was accompany Sojiro to school. That much she was firmly committed to. Any traps that presented themselves could then be dealt with on the spot. Well, not dealt with so much as destroyed, since that was Aoko's forte. But that would be enough to keep him safe for the time being.
帰り道に関してはアリスもそこまで暇ではないと信じるしかないんだけど。
Also, I like the school uniform peacoat, if that is part of their uniform, and they don't just have matching peacoats for no reason. Peacoats are nice, especially like if you actually get yourself dressed up looking good. If Alice was willing to put all her energy into a new trap after the first had failed, then they were as good as dead anyway. Oh, hello, I can hear a fire truck in the background. But Aoko would cross that road when she came to it. It all depended on how deep Alice's dislike of Sojiro really went. It would have been enough to make her abandon her pride as a witch, something she had protected fervently until now. If that were the case, Aoko knew she would never be able to keep him safe. Again. It's been going off a lot today. There's nothing I can do about it. If only I could teach everybody who lived around here how to drive properly in the snow and ice. That'd be fantastic. But it's never that easy. There'll always be some fucking person who thinks they can go full speed around that corner, even though it's all slick, because, oh, I got four-wheel drive and winter tires. That means fucking friction and inertia don't apply to me. And then they fucking are in a ditch and wrapped around a pole. Let's just let it go. Just contemplate our lives. Think about what led us to these points. Where it all went wrong. Okay, it's dying down. The moment 24/7 protection became necessary was the moment she had failed. Her character had led her to focus on what she could do in the here and now and ignore the rest. And the current plan of hers was her best attempt at doing right by everyone. They left behind the Kuonji estate, and the two remained together until the residential area at the bottom of the hill, where Aoko glanced casually at Sojiro.
ところで何か考えてる？
Surprisingly, Sojiro saw through her harmless question and sensed the bigger issue. How was he going to win Alice over? In fact, he had been thinking about that very question. According to his friend, there were 3 basic approaches he could take. One was the roundabout approach.
こいつは時間がかかるが最も自然だ。
Yeah, build it up naturally, but we don't have a lot of
人
time.
間ってのは自分が好きなものを大切にされるとコロッと気を許しちまう。仲間意識ってやつだな。
In other words, instead of focusing on the person one wishes to win over, one should focus on their interests. It was a surprisingly mature opinion coming from Konomi. Unfortunately, Sojiro had no idea what sort of things Alice liked. She seemed fond over the mansion, but what could he do? Clean it for her? He sensed that would have the reverse effect. he had the distinct feeling she would not want him touching what was precious to her. The second approach was to take the inner track.
でもやっぱり本人を落とすのが一番早い。俺たちに魅力がないのなら、魅力のある外付け装備に頼るのだ。
Well, she has much more money than him.
プレゼントなんだよ、しずきくん。
A quick and dirty strategy, the assassin strike. Manipulate someone's feelings with an expensive gift. To Sojiro, this sounded like his best chance. The approach was easy for him to grasp, and he appreciated its simplicity. However, he had the same concerns with the first approach. A step was missing, and without this step, the plan was bound to fail.
あとはまあ剣ってやつ。俺にはよくわかんないけどさ、やりすぎると悪い印象を持たれるとか殿下が言ってたな。私今落とされてるって意識させちゃダメなんだよ。
Yeah.
付き合った後であれ私落とされたと気づかせるのが上等なんだとか。
All three of these plans sound awful. Though Sojiro did not quite grasp the details, he understood the basic idea. Don't press your luck. He knew that much was good advice. He would have to try extremely hard to get on Alice's good side, and he could tell it would be a long process to get there. Sojiro recalled the time he had wandered inside a fox's territory in the mountains. He had left some food on the ground for the fox, and then it never bothered him again. What is considered goodwill and kindness varies from person to person. But if there is enough goodwill from one side, regardless of whether that goodwill is reciprocated, the other side will eventually start to feel an obligation to do so. That was the key.
大丈夫。考えてるよ。とりあえず自分にできることとか、したいことをしようと思う。
I mean, you're not wrong, but that's also not an answer.
安心してくれ。青崎に忠告されたことすらきちんと守る方針だ。
Sojiro seemed ready to face things head on. His answer did little to reassure Aoko, however. She found herself more concerned about his safety than ever before.
学校にあるようなほうきが欲しい。
Broom? Oh, hello, new character?
そうなんだ。できれば安く買えるところ。
You mean like the big long ones that you can use to sweep the entire hallway at once?
しずきの家、アパートよね。ほうきなんてもの必要とは思えないけど。
Don't spill the beans.
いや、ちょっと気になるところがあって掃除がしたいんだ。ゴミ袋もあると助かる。
無駄な出費はできないって言ってたくせに。
I mean, he's working and, hustling and bustling.
まあどうでもいいけど、うちのでよければ使う？
多分1日じゃ終わらないから自分で買うよ。元から欲
Yeah,
しかっ
what's
た
your
ものだし、
recommendation on brooms?
あると便利だよ、ほうき。
Always, huh? But you're not wrong. Sojiro was on his way home from his part-time job after school. It was 4 in the afternoon, 2 hours earlier than his part-time job would have normally ended. The Mad Bear's head chef had gotten in trouble with the accountant for making a student work the day before exams. Thus, Sojiro's boss had tearfully sent him home early. And that is when it happened. The interruption to his standard schedule must have been the shock he needed. Normally, he would have met up with Aoko after she was done with student council affairs and go home with her. However, today, Sojiro was asking the other students who worked at the same place if they knew any shops in the area where he could buy a broom.
田舎者の趣味って理解不能ね。推強すぎ。うちの近くにまっついラーメン屋あるでしょ。あそこの通りを終わりまで行けば起きたって金物店がある。一式揃えるなら西口のホームセンターより安く上がるわ。どうでもいいけど、私のチャリ使う？どうせ試験明けまで使わないし。
Damn, aren't you in good enough terms to lend him your bike? Does Sojiro know how to ride a bike? Sojiro's eyes lit up as if he had met his savior. But biking uphill to the mansion, let alone with a package to carry, was not a pretty thought.
いや、
Oh, well, he does make
自転
deliveries,
車には
so
乗
he
ってみ
probably
たいけ
learned
ど、
quick.
今回は遠慮するよ。じゃあ、また明日。
Saying farewell to his co-workers, he headed to the hardware store. He needed a cheap and sturdy bamboo broom with a large dustpan to go with it. If possible, a pushcart and a stick for a splint would have been nice too. As it happened, Sojiro wanted quite a few things. Alice returned to her work after waking from her nap. Ooh, nice library. The Kuonji estate had an annex that housed a library. The library was filled with books handed down to her from her mother, so it was Alice's territory such that even Aoko dared not enter. If the mansion was a witch's abode, left behind by the times, the library was a fairy tale quarters lost to the ages. It was a natural sanctuary for the young witch who could command ploys to do her bidding. She relied on her memory to recall the location of each book on the many shelves. Damn, that's a good memory. And then she saw it. Upon raising her head, she was met with the most unusual of sights. Her elegant eyebrows bristled in distaste. From that moment on, she failed to accomplish anything she had planned for the day. She was instead forced to stare at the strange sight at her window, eyebrows fixed on that position until the sun set. Doing some just general yard work. Also, I'm surprised your library has windows like that. I'm pretty sure like the sun can like damage books. Moving into the grand mansion on the hill had not brought any major changes to Sojiro's day-to-day schedule. He woke up, he went to his part-time job, ate breakfast, and went to school. Classes came and went, still strange and new, broken up by the rare and brief moments of rest until the school day ended. He left school, went to his part-time job, slept, woke up, and studied for exams. A modest life for a modest young man, continuing every day in the same fashion despite his best efforts to change his fortune. But nothing ever really changes. Whether Aoko was by his side in the mansion, as was frequently the case, or whether Alice was making him drink some potion she prepared before going to bed. The former was an attempt by Aoko to make him feel better, then the latter some attempt to keep an eye on him, even if he did not fully appreciate it. Then, one day, like any other, while Sojiro was pouring himself some tea as he worried over the lack of change in his life, his relationship with Alice was the same as ever, but there's one major change this morning. He was drinking black tea instead of green. Though there were all sorts of different types of tea to be found in the kitchen, a newcomer to the world of tea like Sojiro cannot tell one of them from the next. Yeah, that's kind of how it is. Even like between different green teas, there's like fucking a million different varieties. I can't tell the difference. Naturally, his tea-making skills were limited to tea bags, one of which he placed on his cup before returning to the dining table. Alice and Aoko were already seated. The two of them were eating in silence. In this household, it was everyone for themselves when it came to breakfast. The diplomatic description of their breakfasts would be simple. The more accurate description would be 2 slices of stale bread prepared in seconds. Again, a lot like my breakfasts. Aoko exchanged a word or two with Alice, took a sip of tea, then stood up from her seat. Since it was winter break for the high schooler Alice, she returned to her room after eating as she normally did, while Aoko headed for the front door, shoes in hand, ready for school. After hurriedly clearing the table, Sojiro rushed out the door after Aoko. Together, they walked down the long hill in the direction of school. They had spent 3 days following this simple routine.
ところで、あれから動きはあった?
School had ended, and evening had arrived. Buttered bread roll in one hand, Alice replied with a simple, silent shake of her head.
そう。 ならあっちも次の手を考えているんでしょうね。魔術師本体の居場所は見当ついてる？
Have you checked the local pachinko parlors? Her response was exactly the same. Without showing the slightest sign of dejection, she continued to chew the roll and took a stab at her salad.
そう。私も試験が終わったら手伝うから、それまで悪いけど一人でやってて。今日からあのバカを一夜漬けにしなくちゃいけないんで。
Yeah, he probably needs a little extra help. Alice's face grew dour as if she had something to get off her chest.
問題ないでしょ？アリスはもう休みに入
Well,
ってるんだか
whatever
ら。
it is, it can't be that big. There's not much there to begin with. Waka waka. Alice was indeed on vacation and could spend all day every day on her work as a mage. Yet, she had spent the past few days holed up in the library instead. She was hardly devoting herself to dealing with a challenger, as Aoko put it.
アリス？聞いてる？
わかってる。今夜からそっちもやるから。
Sighing, she stood up. What was bothering Alice, and what was it she wanted to say? What had she been doing only 2 hours earlier? The young witch took her leave from the breakfast table without offering a single clue. Misaki High was a private school, and as such its winter break started earlier than public schools. The end of the term ceremony was in mid-December, followed by a brief respite before the next term began. Man, it is fucking windy out. Of course, that was if, and only if, they overcame the classic obstacle lying between them and an extended break from school: final exams. Time to cram! The radio continued its broadcast late into the night. A thermos of hot tea eliminated the need to venture down to the kitchen. An electronic blanket kept away the winter cold, and a crab-shaped pastry staved off the dinnertime hunger. Like, is it actually shaped like a crab, or what do you mean crab-shaped? You lost me. Like the claws, or like entire thing? Or like main body? I have no idea what pastry you're referring to on that one, Chief. These were the lengths Aoko had gone to. She needed to ensure that every aspect of her surroundings was a help. Every aspect of her surroundings helped pull her a successful all-nighter. Helped her pull a
期末
successful
試験
all-nighter.
1日目、ご苦
Ordered.
労様。それで、生まれ変わる覚悟できた？
Sojiro nodded earnestly. Upon returning from work, he encountered not the maid she expected, but the team and student council president, Aozaki. Half a day earlier, the first day of exams were over, and Sojiro was about to head back to the mansion, where he hoped to put his plan into practice, when...
今夜、私の部屋で監禁ね。あ、夕方からのアルバイトは当然キャンセル。ちょっと本気であの点数はありえないから。
A cold, blue grin greeted him in the hallway. Clenched in her fist was Sojiro's exam paper. Mr. Yamashiro had no doubt said,
転校してきたばかりだし、しょうがないよね。
mm-hmm. But she had snatched the exam out of the teacher's hand the minute he tried to show her. That was how Sojiro had ended up in Aoko's room, instead of the room in the attic which he was so accustomed. Though her situation was far from normal, at the end of the day, she was an adolescent girl like any other. Naturally, she felt uncomfortable letting a boy her own age into her room. However, his grades were truly something that called for desperate measures. Well, at least her room's cleaner than any other teenage girl's room I've seen. She doesn't have like the one chair designated for just piles of clothes. That explained why her mood was even worse than normal today, and the vein on her forehead was pulsing visibly with anger.
先に自分の復習済ませる。あんたはそのテーブル使ってて。
Aoko turned her back to him and sat down at her favorite desk. Sojiro was left standing before a cheap-looking glass table,
なんかいろいろと慣れ
I
ない
hate
な。
writing on glass tables. They're fucking awful.
なあ、青崎。この青いのなんだ？
Wait, you mean the guitar? Restless, Sojiro found his eyes drawn to the guitar propped up in the corner.
なんか薄いし青いし、とんがってるし。きっと青崎のことだし、
In like a metaphorical sense?
もしかしなくても武器か。
I mean, it can be.
楽器よそれ。エレキはともかくアコギは音楽室で似たようなのあったでしょ。あとこれ以上青々言ったら
I got my
その
guitar
とんがっ
behind
て
me
る
too.
ので殴るからね。
I've been working on relearning it. I played in a band in middle school in like the after school program. But, you know, once we got to high school, went to different schools, broke it up. And I haven't played in ages. So strings are rusted all to hell. But, you know, it still works and I'm too lazy to go to a guitar store and buy new strings and restring it, you know. As long as I can get it in tune, I don't care. But man, the calluses on my fingers makes me feel like a little bitch fucking building them back up. Play for like 5 minutes and then it's like, owie, ow, the little thin strings. Sojiro plopped himself down on a cushion, struggling to suppress the desire to retort that it was a weapon after all.
ちょっとは落ち着きなさいよ。いつもは耳の遠い大型犬みたいに鈍感なくせに。何か気になるものでもあるの？
Well, your room's just so different than his. In fact, it was Aoko who was oblivious for once. For his part, Sojiro could not figure out why he felt so restless either. Suffice to say, they were both pretty clueless at this moment.
もしかして内装？この部屋の家具のグレードが今とは違うから不思議がってるの
Yeah,
ね。
very modern.
ここ。ベッド以外は私の家から持ち込んだものなの。引っ越してから2年経つけど、まだ屋敷には馴染んでないでしょ。
Though she misunderstood the real reason for Sojiro's nervousness, Aoko seemed satisfied that she had resolved Sojiro's anxiety for the time being and returned to her studies. She flipped through her notes and textbooks as if fast-forwarding a tape. There was no opening for an outsider like him to intrude in her high-speed study session. Repelled by her intensity, he retreated to his table. He was at least sensitive enough to pick up on her desire to be left alone. It was a testament to Sojiro that having his needs utterly ignored was now second nature to him, to the extent that he could now happily go about his business in solitude. I wouldn't be surprised if fucking Aoko gave him some Adderall. Like, here you go, fucking study up, kid. A little amphetamine will get you going. 2 hours passed. Then, as the clock neared 11, Aoko's speed and concentration began to slip. Seeing his window of opportunity, Sojiro seized the moment to strike up a conversation.
青崎、ちょっといいかな。
何？
She spoke hesitantly, not bothering to turn to face him. She continued to flip the pages of her notebook, albeit at a slower speed than before.
この3日間、青崎たちの夕食事情を見てきたけど、君たちの食事はいつもああなのか？
What, strained?
そうだけど、
Distant?
おかしい？
そう言われると困るな。
You're not really having dinner together. You're just two people both having dinner at the same table.
ただ学校じゃみんな楽しそうだった。誰かと食事をとるってことは、ああいう風になることだって思ってた。だからもしかすると
You know what?
もしかしないわよ。別にあんたのせいでアリスと話さないわけじゃないわ。私たちはいつもああだから。
Aoko spoke calmly with her back still turned, seemingly unaware of what he was getting at.
張り詰めた食卓だな。青崎とアリスは仲がいいと思ってたのに。
She neither confirmed nor denied his statement. She was, however, surprised by the disappointed tone in which he had made it.
張り詰めた食卓っていうのは合ってるわね。
They're frenemies.
アリスが何回あんたの飲み物にメスカリンを入れてたかなんてもう覚えてないし、昨日なんか堂々とサラダの中に7かまどなんか混ざってるし。
Cool. I know those things.
ほんと、あの子何考えてるんだろう。
Isn't mescaline like the thing you fucking like the fiber? That way it keeps you regular. I'm unfamiliar with Rowan. It sounds like I think it's a tree. I'm uncertain if there's like a berry to it or like a root. A bitter smile sprang across her face and reminiscent. The pages of her textbook continued to turn.
メスカリン
サボテンから取れるアルカロイドよ。アリスが使う以上、
That's
た
why
だ
I'm
の
familiar
幻
with
覚
it.
剤じゃないでしょうけどね。
There's a kind of cactus they sell at Walmart
私はこん
that
な
you
もんで
can grind up and you know, go on a little spirit journey. With that, she slammed shut her fourth textbook of the night. After having scarcely changed positions the whole night, she finally turned in her chair to face him.
さあ、今度はあんたを仕込まなくちゃね。今日の4科目の答案、実に総十郎らしい出来栄えでそっとしそうになったわ。
Single digit.
私。
Her tone was light, but her gaze was heavy as she stared at Sojiro, seated cross-legged on the floor.
原告、地理、数学、電子工学。あの調子であと2日続けたら、冬休みが消えるのは当然でしょうね。
I mean, it's
そうなると困るのは私なのよ。
pretty
実
clear
際
he would know none of those things.
いや俺も困るぞ。休みなのに学校に行くのはなんか気が乗らない。
Sojiro calmly corrected her.
そりゃあ私のセリフだ。あんたが学校に行くってことは必然こっちまでとばっちりが来るっての。
I don't know. What would happen? All she could think about, as much as she tried not to, was Mr. Yamashiro and his annoying grin.
それ以前に私の目が黒いうちはオール赤なんてやつは許さない。
Oh, what a slave driver.
本来なら少年から叩き直すところだけど、ま、あんたはいろいろ事情があるからとりあえず点数だけで勘弁してあげる。私もテストは一夜漬けで片付ける方
Everyone
だ
gets
から
one mulligan.
あんた一人仕込むのにそう時
Oh,
間
I
は
guess
か
in
から
his
ないだろう
case,
し。
it's a set. A mulligan for the exams. In their entirety. Sojiro's expression openly soured in response to her declaration. It was obvious he did not think he needed her meddling in his studies.
あんたね、苦労するのは私とあなたどっちだと思う？
Sojiro got the feeling that it would be him, but he nodded slowly nonetheless. Then again, it would probably take more effort on her part than his, and in any case, he knew there was no way he could talk her out of it.
この度はご迷惑をおかけします。
Sojiro summarily bowed his head to show gratitude and willingness to work.
よろしい。安心なさい。私だって鬼じゃないから。別に平均点狙うってわけでもなし。
As long as
予
the
定
pass.
通りこなしていけば3時には眠れるわよ。
Still rough, though. She nodded with satisfaction, pleased by his studious attitude. He had plenty of obstacles ahead of him, but that sense of humility might be enough to see him through.
って何仏心出してるんだ私。いいしずきくん。この後頼られちゃたまんないから釘刺しておくけど、私がマンツーマンで誰かを仕込むなんてこと、
Mm-hmm.
めったにないから。
You got your own shit you gotta do.
これはあくまで異例中の異例だって覚えておいてね。
Sun Sun, Sun Sun. She spoke more to convince herself than him, but his expression still darkened. Made one want to hang a side? You mean a sign? Around his neck that read, "Please take me home," like an abandoned pet. Aoko chided herself for being so soft. For some reason, that moment she recalled that it had been raining the day they met each other. In his little box, with not even an umbrella over him. Time passed like the falling grains of an hourglass. So, normally. Because that signals time passing at a normal rate.
結局。
Oh, all-nighter. Aoko squinted as light poured through the window, and she downed another cup of tea. She had lost count of exactly how many times she had drank long ago.
一晩かかったね、大崎。
Sojiro picked up on what she had left unspoken. Aoko had used up all her pep. In staying up all night, but also in shouting at him. He looked pale and uncomfortable, just as he had all night long.
ええ、甘く見てたわ、あんたのこと。
だから褒めても何も出ないって。
Yeah, a compliment, that's what that was.
ある意味、褒めるに値するかもね。
She was at the end of her rope, but she could not help a bit of pride that swelled up in her. His lack of even the most basic comprehension was shocking, even taking into account his upbringing in the wilderness. His ability was that of a middle school student, and that was being generous. Preparing him for exams by teaching him new concepts and ideas was a waste of time. Rote memorization was his only hope for passing. Everything he memorized could collapse like a house of cards afterwards for all she cared, as long as he remembered for his exams. Assuming he had the capability to be a good student in the first place had been her mistake. It took all night to cover the content for just 4 exams, and she still did not feel confident he could apply what he had so earnestly tried to memorize.
でもね、真面目なのはいいことだけど、あんた暗記するのに時間かかりすぎ。
そこは多めに見てほしい。今まで頭より体で覚えることのが多かったんだ。
Can't really get the muscle memory for doing fucking math equations. Akko let out an exasperated sigh. Naturally, physical prowess mattered more in mountain life than the intellectual kind, but still.
まあいいわ。これで山城からあんたの成績について相談されることもないでしょうし。紅茶、もう一杯入れてくれる？
Sure you don't want some coffee? Like, tea's good, it still has caffeine in it, but you know, coffee's got the more oomph to it. The boldness kind of like shocks your system into being awake too. Sojiro stood up and obeyed, as Aoko stretched her aching back. She had apparently brought in tea bags in bulk, and there were still plenty to use. You got the water for it, though? He spoke under his breath so she wouldn't hear. It made him somewhat happy to see her so tired and unfocused after the grueling all-night lesson she had given him. It did not cross his mind that the excess tea bags, far from being an indulgent purchase, were purchased intentionally to sustain them through the night. A relaxed expression came across Aoko's face as she watched him, naive and as peaceful as could be.
悪くないけど、せめてリーフティーで入れられるように仕込まなくちゃダメかな。
Yeah, I got an electric kettle now that has like an internal metal steeper to put the leaves in, so that way you can just take it out and then have your tea ready to go without having to get a separate like little not teaspoon, but there's like the little steeper clamps or whatever you can get. It's nice, especially because it has like temperature settings too, instead of just boiled and not boiled, and warming, so that way I can keep it nice and toasty. Seeming to have overheard her not so inner monologue, Sojiro made to face her.
やっぱり味は違うのか?
Not really.
違う、もう全然。
Yeah, that's just your fucking. It's not real.
正直私はどうでもいいんだけど、アリスはね、かなりお茶にはうるさいよ。
She likes tea. We have an in.
そうだ、宗十郎、アリスとうまくいってる？
Aoko cheerfully slumped over the table, now covered with textbooks and scribbled notes. Sojiro watched her with a hint of resentment in his eyes.
彼女と会えるのは食事の時だけで、食事と言ったらあれだろ？どうやって仲良くなれって言うんだ？
そう？私は十分脈ありだと思ったけど。
Otherwise you might get tossed in a bottle and left on a shelf till the end of time.
そっちはアリスを怖がってないし、アリスはそっちを追い出す理由を見つけようと躍起になってるし。いい条件よ、これって。
全然わからないな。あの子とこっちの関係は遊園地前の青崎と俺の関係と同じじゃないか。一体どこがいい条件なんだ?
Oh, so that way you can get to the, the aftermath when things are a little more smoothed over.
とりあえず反目し合ってはいないでしょ。一方通行の関係だけど、それはそれ。アリスにしちゃ上出来っていうか、理由を探している時点で可能性あり、ね。
Yeah, the lack of active hostility actually means you're doing pretty good by her standards, I guess.
あの子は反感に応えることが癖になっちゃってるから、大抵相手を自滅させちゃうのよ。
Her ominous words only confused Sojiro further.
知ってしまえば単純な話なんだけどね、あの子の場合。ただ
Whether or not he could put it into practice was another story altogether.
難しいよ、青崎は。
He carried their teacups back to the table as he spoke. Aoko picked hers up and took a sip as if to dispel her exhaustion.
でも、確かに君の言う通りだ。俺はまだあの子の顔しか知らない。クオンジ・アリスという名前すら定かじゃないのは問題があるね。
He followed Aoko's lead and took a sip of his own. His cup contained not tea, but plain hot water. Oh my god, you fucking psycho.
あの子のこと教えてほしい？
Aoko scrutinized him carefully as she sat. Most boys would have been captivated by her gaze in that moment.
いや、そういうことは本人に聞いてあげるべきだと思う。
What the fuck was that noise? It wasn't my window that banged. I think like my neighbor's trash can fell over. You know, one of the big plastic ones that just went donk when it hit the ground. But he ignored her and stared straight ahead as if speaking directly to Alice herself.
そうね。あんたってアリス好みの対応をするわ。ねえ、
Well, yeah, wouldn't
前
really
から
mean
気に
anything
なっ
if
て
you
たけ
just
ど、
gave him all the
客室
answers.
でアリスに何を言ったの？いくら私との約束とはいえ、あの子が部外者を半日も放置するなんてありえないのよ。
He thought back to that moment. He could recall only 2 or 3 words he had exchanged with Alice after awakening in the guest room. He did not recall the conversation being anything special, but he could not bring himself to casually share it with Aoko now. After all,
ねえ、どんなセリフであの子の気を変えたの？
Aoko eagerly pressed him for answers. Sojiro frowned, unsure of what to say. He did not know what the interaction had been like for Alice, but for him it had felt special, sacred almost. The question was, why and for whom was he so concerned?
ほら、白状しなさいってば。隠し事なんて似合わないわよ。
Her disconcerting smile moved even closer. Sojiro did not look like he was able to stay silent for much longer. As he would eventually come to realize, Aoko Ozaki had a sometimes troubling persistency to gossip. Propensity to gossip.
まあ、あの子と
Look at
何
me
を
just
話した
making
か
up
は言わない
words.
けど、今の青崎に比べれば花もロマンもなかったのだけは確かかな。さっきまでは青崎が鬼みたいだったからいいもんだなって気がつかなかった。
More manipulative than friendly, but... He stared directly into her eyes as he spoke. Aoko nearly leapt out of her seat in panic. Now that he pointed it out, she realized their bodies were practically touching.
仕方ないでしょ。この方が効率良かったんだから。
Yep, sure.
あんた、横にいないとすぐ間違えるし。
Aoko stood up as she lashed back at him.
そうだね。なんか昔みたいで久しぶりに集中できた。これが異例中の異例っていうのが本当に残念だ。
余裕あるじゃない。その分じゃ今日のテストだけじゃなく、アリスとの話し合いもうまくいきそうね。そう
Won't that leave you just being a third wheel?
ああ、それはもちろん。
Unless this is a trike we're going to be riding. His cool response caught her off guard, and for a moment, she was at a loss for words. She meant it sarcastically, and yet he responded with a warm smile.
方針変更だ。まずは近くで話しかけてみるよ。嫌なことはいずれ終わるって分かったから。
Oh no, you definitely can. Aoko remained in a state of silent shock as he spoke and rose to his feet. She could not help but feel a reluctant respect for what seemed to be his newfound confidence and competence.
とりあえず今日は一人で帰ってアリスと話してみる。青崎は放課後生徒会だろ。
Yeah, give him some alone time. He was right. It was their last meeting before winter break. Normally, he would have waited until their meeting ended, or else gone straight to his part-time job. This was part of Aoko's plan to make sure he and Alice were never alone in the mansion
待
together.
った。まさかあんた、 一人でアリスとやり合うつもりなの？
You know, they need to get some time, you know, together without you looming over it and like spoiling the atmosphere. I think your presence just like puts Alice in a fighting mood. And that's not very conductive to, you know, trying to get along with a boy here. I kind of slipped into my real accent there for a second. Just ignore that. I try not to talk like that very often, but it does come out at times. His reply made complete sense, which floored her.
でも青崎がいたら話が複雑になるのは目に見えてるんだ。そんなわけで今日はゆっくり飛び丸の相手でもしててくれ。
本気？
He felt like he was being tested, but nodded nonchalantly nonetheless. Knowing how grave the situation really was, Haoko was not sure how to respond to his apparent lack of concern. The morning light coming through the window marked a stark contrast between the two. Which stood bathed in light, which lurked in darkness. Now, that went without saying. The silence lasted only a brief moment. Staring at him gravely, she said,
そう。なら止めはしないわ。
At your own funeral. That was all she had. Her dry tone hid the significance of their pregnant silence, not revealing the slightest bit of discord.
なんか怒ってないか、青崎。
Oh, she most certainly is.
別に。それで何か考えはあるの？下手な考えは通じないわよ、あの子には。
Sojiro furrowed his brow in deep thought. He knew it would be hard to get close to her through talk alone. In fact, felt nearly impossible.
言葉で落ちないやつは物で釣れ。
Kinomi had been the voice of wisdom and folly for him countless times in the past. Incidentally, Kinomi had been referring to Aoko at the time he shared that pearl of wisdom. Oh yeah, Aoko seems like she'd like shiny things. Just fucking clink some coins in front of her and, you know, have her follow you like a zombie. But Sojiro had the distinct impression that he was trying to buy Aozaki's kindness with gifts would not end well.
だいたいアリスの趣味もわからないじゃないか。考えてみると今の自分と彼女はまるで接点がない。
Sojiro crossed his arms at a loss.
いつものことだけど、何も考えてなかったわけね。
And I don't think he really has the social acumen to, you know, nonchalantly find out those what she's into without, you know, just upfront asking her. And then, you know, I think even Alice would be able to tell if he comes in the next day with like, hey, check out this cool thing I got you that just so happens to be exactly what we were talking about yesterday. Subtlety's not my main strong suit
あれこれ
here.
考えなくてもいいと思う。アリスにはあれこれ説明するとか分かってもらおうとかそういうんじゃなくてなんていうか。
He pondered intently as he tried to put his vague thoughts into something concrete, but he did not spend much time in thought. With a nod, he concluded,
要は俺が彼女を好きかどうかってことじゃないか。
He articulated what is often so hard to say with surprising clarity and calm. It was certainly a prerequisite for the task he hoped to achieve. He had no hope of making her appreciate him with words, or with acts of giving, with the expectation of reciprocation. So many big words in the sentence, my God. He simply wished to get to know her better because he liked her. That was his honest, uncontrived intention, and it reflected the purity of his heart. But whether that was in his best interest or not was another story altogether. Calculation and compromise, selfishness and conflict. Purity such as his often irritated people who believed that morals went against human nature. Or rather, people who were inevitably forced to believe it. Aoko silently walked away without responding to what Sojiro said. Her long hair swung from side to side as she passed by him.
青崎
Noting her strangely cold manner, he called out to her. However, she was already opening the door to leave.
下でシャワー浴びてくるから、あなたは自分の部屋に戻ってて。
Her words lacked any expressive inflection. In his confusion, all Sojiro could do was nod.
いいけど、やっぱり怒ってないか、青崎。
Yep. Emotion returned to her face as he spoke. It was not the typical irritated look to which he had grown so accustomed.
そうね。あんた流に言えば、多分私は怒ってる。何に対してのものかは、あんまり言いたくないけど。
Poor Sojiro did not even realize that he himself was the reason. She looked at him, and for an instant he witnessed an emotion on her face of which he had never seen the likes of before.
じゃあね。これが最後になるかもしれないから、お別れぐらいは言っておくわ。
Yeah, you go get yourself killed on your own time. Don't involve me.
あなたはアリスを甘く見すぎてる。でも、それが同時にあんたの強みなのよね。私たちには毒にしかならないけれど。
You know, and sometimes medicine is just a little tiny microdose of poison, so it might be just what we need for the to clear up this complication we got here. The door slammed loudly shut behind her. Her steps were audible as she walked away on the other side of the wall. The corridor must have been nearly freezing without any central heating, but Haoko seemed perfectly comfortable, just seething with rage.
なんで私から出ていくんだ
Yeah, it's kind of your room. You should probably grab like a change of clothes, maybe a towel if like you keep your own linens in here.
順番が逆普通先に出てくのはそっちじゃない
Unless you plan to make like the naked dash back to your room. Haoko promptly kicked Sojiro out of her room. Once again, the wooden door closed with a slam. The corridor was not as cold as he had expected. Not quite as bad as freezing, at least. Well, the temperature still can't be that bad. They got radiators like every 10 feet or so. But with that is where we're going to end it here for today, because I feel like this chapter might still be going on for a little bit, or not. Maybe it'll end in 5 minutes like it did at the beginning of this episode. But as I also said in the beginning of this episode, I haven't had lunch yet, and I'm dying. Like, those little chocolate Christmas snacks I had, they were good, not enough to sustain me, and I'm starting to feel it. I'm getting a little peckish. So yeah, with that, hope to see you guys all next time for the next episode of MiHoYo, where wacky shenanigans are probably going to ensue that might not be so wacky nor shenanigans, but see you guys all then for it. But don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring the notification bell. See you all next time. Bye. Later. That was one of my worst outros ever. I had no good way to segue it because I'm just gonna abruptly stopping. So, yep. Bye. Mwah.